Hey y'all. So, today I am going to be continuing the series The Road Trip. This is part 4. Let's go. One day, Steve, Jim, Ed, Cecil, Sierra, Earl, Paige, Verl, Sherry, Brent, Haley, Kiara, Aliciana, the patroller, and Alicia were traveling to Houston for a vacation. They booked a hotel down there for 10 days. While on their way from Scio, they were being followed by a state trooper. When the state trooper recognized the patroller, he drove away. Sierra was driving Steve's megacab Dodge. When they were driving down the interstate, they got caught up in a Trump train. Luckily, they had their Trump flags on the truck, so they drove around with the train for a while. Then they got back on track. When they got back on track, they saw a strange sight. They saw a creepy looking woman standing on the side of the road being creepy. Sierra drove past her and saw she had a blank expression on her face. They didn't stop. They kept driving. By this time, they were near the hotel. They were just a few blocks away. Once they got to the hotel, they saw a mysterious-looking car sitting in the parking lot. The patroller and Sierra checked it out. They didn't see anyone in the car. There were no other cars in the parking lot, so they went inside to check in. The desk clerk looked a little suspicious, but they did not acknowledge that. They went up to their room and got settled down. Steve sat on his bed and looked at his phone. He saw a random app on his phone that he knew he didn't download. So he walked over to Sierra and Brent's room to see if they could figure out what the app was. Sierra knew exactly what the app was. It was a tracking app. Somehow, someone installed the app without him knowing. Suddenly, a noise came from the living room. They all met in the living area to see what the sound was. They didn't hear it for a while, but when they did, it sounded faint. The patroller, Sierra, and Steve loaded their guns. Sierra told everyone to go to their rooms. Everyone except Brent, the patroller, Steve, and Alicia. Sierra made sure the door and the windows were locked and secure. Everyone was freaking out. After about 15 minutes, Sierra went around to all the rooms and made sure everyone was alright. They all had their guns loaded and ready. Soon, they heard the sound again. It sounded like a door creaking, but it wasn't coming from their hotel room. It was coming from one of the rooms across the hall. Sierra and the patroller walked across the hall to investigate. They knocked on the door from where the sound was coming from. No one answered. So they knocked again. Still no answer. They saw the cleaning lady and asked her if someone was in that room. No one has been in that room for years, the cleaning lady said. That sentence sent chills down both of their spines. Well, why are there sounds coming from this room then? Sierra asked. Well, let me tell you a little story, the cleaning lady replied. Alright, the patroller and Sierra said. A few years ago, there was a couple that lived in that room. But one day, someone broke in through the window and murdered them. Ever since, people have reported hearing sounds coming from that room, the cleaning lady told. Well, we are police officers and we would like to investigate, Sierra said. We can't let anyone in that room because the people who own the hotel won't let us let anyone in, the cleaning lady responded. Could you please call them and tell them that we need to investigate? The patroller asked. Yes, the cleaning lady said. She quickly called the owners and said that there are cops at the hotel and they would like to investigate the room. The owner said they would be down in a bit to give them the key because no staff had a key to that room. After about 10 minutes went by, the owners were there. They walked to the floor with the room and gave Sierra and the patroller the key to the room. Sierra unlocked the door and they investigated. Steve, Cecil, Ed, Jim, Paige, Brent, Earl, Sherry, Aliciana, Virgil, Haley, Kiara, and Alicia went over to the room and to help investigate. They found a dead body in the closet. It took Steve, the patroller, Cecil, Jim, and Ed to get the body out of the room. They ordered the cleaning lady to get an ambulance. The ambulance got there in 5 minutes. They wheeled the body out to the ambulance. They took a DNA test on the woman and found out who it was. It was Aliciana's mother. Aliciana was disturbed. She didn't know her mother very well because she was put up for adoption when she was only 5 years old. Her mother and her father were staying in this hotel when she was born. But they couldn't handle having a child, so when Aliciana was 5, they put her up for adoption. She didn't know what to say or do. She was just walking around trying to collect her thoughts. She went back to the hotel room and watched TV. Haley, Kiara, and Sherry went back up to the room with Aliciana to keep her company. They all watched TV. While they were watching a car commercial, they heard a noise from their bathroom. Haley grabbed a gun from the table next to the couch and investigated. She saw a child sitting on the toilet. She escorted the child down to Sierra. Sierra asked the child where he lived. "I live at 405 Beach Street," the boy said. "Okay, I'm a police officer. I will take you to your house," Sierra replied. "Okay," the boy agreed. So Sierra escorted him to the car and put him in the front and drove off. Sierra drove down streets that she was familiar with to get to his house. The boy pointed to his house, so Sierra pulled in the driveway. The boy's dad saw Sierra pull in the driveway and pulled a gun out. She pulled her gun out at him. "Sir, I have your son," Sierra hollered. "Why are you here?" the dad asked. "I'm a police officer and I have your son," Sierra responded. "Give me my child," the dad said. "Not until you hold your gun down," Sierra said. "Okay," the dad replied. He put his gun down and the boy ran to him. "Thank you," the dad said. "Sure," Sierra replied. She jumped back in her car and drove away. When she was getting ready to drive off, the dad shot at her car. She put her car in park and shot the dad in the neck. She ran up to help him. She got the bullet out of his neck and cleaned him up. She wouldn't have helped him unless the boy wasn't there. "If your son wasn't here, I would not have helped you," Sierra told him. "Are you going to arrest me?" the dad asked. "No, you're not worth my arresting time," Sierra said. "I'm sorry," the dad said. "It's alright, don't do it again," Sierra warned him. She told the boy to call her if he needs anything. "I will," the boy said. "Oh, by the way, what is your name?" Sierra asked. "Robert," the boy replied. "Alright, Robert. I'm Officer Sierra, but you can call me Cece," Sierra replied. "Okay," Robert replied. "Okay, here's my number. You call me if you need anything," Sierra said. "Okay, bye-bye," Robert replied. "Bye," Sierra whispered. Sierra walked back to her car and waved goodbye. Sierra headed back to the hotel. When she got there, no one was standing outside, so she assumed everyone went back to the room. Sierra walked in the hotel and up the stairs to the room. She walked in the room and sat down next to Brent. Brent was happy to see her. About an hour later, the phone rang. Sierra answered it. It was Robert. "Hey, Cece, can you come back to my house?" Robert asked. "Yeah, why?" Sierra replied. "Because my dad is trying to abuse me." Robert said. "Okay, I'll be there in a few," Sierra said. "Alright, see you then," Robert said. "Bye," Sierra whispered. Sierra told the patroller to get in the car because they had something to do. Sierra sped away to Robert's house. They got there in about 5 minutes. Robert was standing on the front porch. He was crying. Sierra ran up to him. "Hey, where's your dad?" Sierra asked. "Inside, sitting on the couch," Robert replied. "Mark, watch Robert, please," Sierra said. Alright, the patroller said. Sierra ran inside and saw Robert's dad sitting on the couch. Get up, Sierra aggressively said. No, the dad said. Now, Sierra yelled. Okay, the dad agreed. He got up. Sierra saw him grab his baseball bat. Put it down, Sierra hollered. He didn't put it down. So Sierra shot his hand. Blood was gushing everywhere. She ushered him out to the car. She threw him in the back seat. She radioed for backup. The patroller stayed with Robert while Sierra drove his dad to the police station. Robert's dad tried to touch Sierra inappropriately. She smacked him. She drove a little faster. When she got to the police station, she pushed him into the station and into a cell. She got a text from the patroller. Hey, Sierra, the backup found a lot of things. Come back to the house and I will show you. The patroller texted. Alright, I'll be over in a few, Sierra replied. She got in her car and drove back to Robert's house. When she got there, she was disturbed. There was a lot of torture devices. Sierra, can I come stay with you and Mark? Robert asked. Sure, Sierra replied. Cool, Robert said. Let's go back to the hotel, the patroller announced. They got in the car and drove back to the hotel. Robert was surprised to know that they were staying in a hotel, so Sierra explained that they were on a vacation. Robert was amazed. When they got back to the hotel, Sierra texted Haley to let the others know they had another visitor. Haley told them just before Sierra, the patroller, and Robert walked through the door. Sierra introduced Robert to everyone. Later that night, they packed up their stuff and headed back for Ohio. Robert got to ride in Steve's truck. The patroller drove the cop car with his wife Alicia. Alicia and the patroller are a great couple. They love and respect other people and each other. They got married back in 2009. Sierra drove Steve's truck back to Ohio. Sierra drives his truck just like he does, fast and loud. While on the way to Ohio, they saw the same woman from a week ago. She looked even more creepier than before. She was looking at Sierra like she did before. She just drove past. She sped up a little. Sierra and Steve were teasing each other. Brent was listening to his own music in the back seat. Sierra tried to wake him up because they had to stop at a gas station to get gas and other things. She wanted to know if he needed anything. Sorry. Babe, do you need anything? Sierra asked. Yeah, Mountain Dew, Brent replied. Alright, Sierra said. She walked in the gas station and got everyone Mountain Dews. Steve walked in the gas station with Sierra. Jim filled up the tank. In just a few minutes, they were ready to hit the road again. They hit the road and finished the drive. A few hours later, they reached Scio. When they got back to the house, they saw an unknown car sitting in their driveway. Sierra checked it out. She saw someone sitting in the driver's seat. She opened the door and touched the person's neck. He was cold, which means he is dead. She told the patroller to get an ambulance. He called an ambulance and helped her get the body out of the car. After they got the body out of the car, Sierra moved the car to the empty parking lot next door. The ambulance arrived in 10 minutes. They took the body to the hospital and called them the next day. They had some disturbing news for them. The man was Haley's long-lost brother. Haley was worried. She didn't even know she had a brother. She didn't worry about it for a while because she got over it in a few hours. A few hours later, Sierra and the patroller had to go to work. Babe, it's really early. Why do you have to go to the station so early? Brent asked. Because my shift starts early in the morning, babe, Sierra replied. Okay, well, have a good day, Brent tiredly said. I will, Sierra responded. Call me if you need anything, Brent yelled. I will, Sierra hollered from the bathroom. After she got ready, the patroller got ready. Sierra went downstairs and made her lunch and the patroller's lunch. She made her and the patroller's breakfast as well. They had a meal replacement bar for breakfast. They had another one in their lunch pails. After they ate, they left the house. They got in the car and drove to work. When they got to work, a few of their fellow officers were already there. At this time, it was 5:30 a.m. The patroller and Sierra's shifts started at 6 a.m. They wanted to be there early to get a head start on their work. As soon as their shift started, they got a call. When the patroller answered it, no one replied. So he hung up. But the same person called back. This time there was heavy breathing on the other end. A few minutes later, the person hung up. The patroller told Sierra, and she was weirded out. Suddenly, her phone rang. It was the same person. They did the same thing as the patroller. First, they didn't say anything. Then Sierra hung up. They called back. She heard heavy breathing. Then they hung up. And they never called back after that. They thought that was weird. Sierra got a text from Brent. He was asking her if she was alright. She called him because she didn't feel like texting. Brent was happy to hear her voice again. Because whenever she is away from him, he misses her. And he loves her voice. After they hung up, she got back to work, and Brent went to the store to get her a surprise for her birthday. After she got off from work, he was going to surprise her with some flowers and a bottle of wine. Sierra is a country girl, and she doesn't really drink wine, but she does like it. She just doesn't drink it on a regular basis. Anyways, a few hours later, Brent called her again. He wanted to meet her at the local park. They were going to have a date at the park. Luckily, when he called, she was just getting off work. The patroller drove her home. She walked to the park after she got fixed up. She carried her 1911 .45 pistol on her everywhere she went. Plus, it was getting dark. Brent had his pistol on him, too. The park was a 15-minute walk from the house. Brent drove to the park, and Steve didn't want her taking his truck at night. Besides, she wanted to get some exercise. When she got to the park, Brent was waiting for her. Brent got up and hugged her. He complimented her on her outfit. But Sierra noticed something hiding behind a tree. She told him, and he looked to the tree. He didn't see anything at first, but after looking for a solid 20 seconds, he saw someone's head pop around from the other side of the tree. They both pulled out their guns, but they didn't use them right away. They tried to enjoy their little date. Sierra noticed the person inching closer to them. She tried to keep her eyes on Brent, but she was also trying to make sure the person didn't keep getting closer. Soon, they saw Steve's truck pull up. Everyone was in it. Steve told them to jump in the truck. He didn't explain why. But he just ushered them to get in the truck. Brent and Sierra packed up their stuff and put their guns in their holsters and got in the truck. As they were leaving, Steve explained why he wanted them to get in the truck. "Did you notice that guy sneaking up on you?" Steve asked. "Yeah, why?" Brent and Sierra asked confusedly. "Well, he's a murderer, and he wanted something from me. He must have been mistaken Brent for me," Steve replied. "Oh, Lord," Sierra said. Sierra and the patroller were off duty, so they couldn't arrest anyone. They drove back to the house. A few hours later, they heard a knock on the door. Robert asked who it was. No one dared to answer his question, because they didn't want him to know who or what it was. They didn't want to scare him. Soon the person walked away, or so they thought. A few minutes later, there was a knock at the front door. They still didn't answer. Soon they saw the figure go away. They all went to bed. Brent and Sierra were still a little freaked out, but eventually they got to sleep after turning on the radio. Steve checked on them for what seemed like 50 times. Steve worries about Sierra and Brent. So does everyone else. They all check on them a lot, but Steve does it the most. Fast forward a few hours, it was morning. Sierra and the patroller were off work today. They got to go on another Trump train. The Trump train started in Scio and drove through New Philadelphia, Dover, Uhrichsville, Carrollton, Malvern, Minerva, Canton, Akron, and Cadiz. It took 4 hours. They love going to Trump trains, especially Steve, Cecil, Ed, and Jim. They always know when and where the Trump trains are. 4 hours later, they traveled from Cadiz back to Scio. It only takes 20 minutes from Cadiz to Scio. They were just having fun. When they got back to the house, they realized they needed things from the store. Steve, Sierra, Cecil, Ed, and Jim hopped back in the truck and drove to the store. When they got to the store, they saw someone being murdered behind the store. Sierra and Cecil ran behind the building with their guns. Sierra shot the person in the chest. He dropped to the ground. She ran to him and arrested him. Cecil called an ambulance. The ambulance was there in about 15 minutes. They took the woman away. Steve, Jim, and Ed were in the store when this all happened. The patroller showed up on the scene and took the man to the police station. After they got the man in a cell, they all went back to the house. When they got back to the house, they were surprised to see all the others sitting on the porch. They asked them why they were sitting on the porch. "We wanted to know if you were safe," Haley said. "We're always safe," Sierra replied. After that, they went back inside. They had some lunch. Sierra, Haley, Kiara, Alicia, and Sherry fixed lunch. After they ate, they went to the park. They got to the park and played some basketball. They were listening to Sierra sing "Dancing with Your Ghost" by Sasha Sloan. Sierra's vocals sent shivers down their spines. Haley was tearing up because she was thinking about someone who broke her heart a few years back. After that song, Sierra sang "Hold On" by Chord Overstreet. This brought even more tears to Haley's eyes. By the time Sierra finished, she even had tears in her eyes, but she wiped them away and kept singing. She let Aliciana sing a song with her. Sierra is a famous singer, and she had a very big audience. Aliciana loves to sing, but she never sang in front of people. Sierra knows she can sing because she has heard her before. Aliciana picked "Picture" by Kid Rock and Sheryl Crow for them to sing. They sang it so well that even Cecil was tearing up. After that song, she called Paige up on stage to sing "Whiskey Lullaby" by Brad Paisley and Alison Krauss. They had great vocals, with Paige's thick southern drawl and Sierra mixed with Sierra's soft, loud southern drawl. It was perfection. They are the best combination of awesomeness. After they finished, Sierra told Steve, Cecil, Jim, Ed, Brent, Verl, Sherry, Haley, Kiara, the patroller, Alicia, and Aliciana to come up on stage. They were going to sing "Country Boy Can't Survive" by Hank. This was going to be the last song. After they sang, everyone that came to see them clapped. Sierra loves performing. She especially loves performing in her hometown. After the show, they packed up and headed back to the house. While on the way back to the house, they saw a figure standing next to the road. The figure looked homeless or crazy. They couldn't really tell from the truck. They kept on driving, until Steve looked in his rearview mirror and saw the figure chasing them. Steve stomped on the gas. Sierra told him not to go to the house yet because if the person catches up with them, they'd know where they live. Steve agreed and he headed in a different direction. They went for the next town, which was Jewett. They started heading to Jewett when they saw the figure right behind them. Steve stomped on the gas again. He must have been doing 90 miles an hour on a 55 mile an hour road. When they got into the town limits, he slowed down to the speed limit of 35. They headed to the bar called Pennington's. They needed a drink after all that. The woman wasn't following them anymore. She must have turned around and when they got inside town limits. While in Pennington, Sierra saw a man walking down the street. She noticed that he was looking right at her. She looked away. The guy opened the door and walked in the bar. Sierra was trying to hide her head, but he knew where she was. He tapped on her shoulder and said, "Hey, beautiful." The man was breathing heavily as he spoke. "Leave me alone," Sierra fired back. "No. What are you going to do, arrest me?" the man sarcastically said. "Actually, yes, I will, because I am a cop," Sierra said. "Prove it," the man replied. Sierra pulled her wallet out of her pocket and showed the man her badge. This got the man's attention and he walked out of the bar. Sierra ran after him. She caught up with him and arrested him. The patroller called for backup. When the backup came, they took the man away. When Sierra and the patroller walked back in the bar, the bartender walked up to them. "Thank you," the bartender said. "No problem, we don't need to be thanked. That's what we get paid to do, ma'am," Sierra replied. "Well, you deserve it," the bartender said. After that, they walked back to their bar stools. Robert wasn't allowed to sit at the bar because he is not old enough to. So he asked Feliciana to keep him company while he sits at a table. She agreed, and they pulled up a two-person table near the front. A little later on, they paid for their food and left. While they were getting in the truck, Earl noticed someone watching them. He told Sierra, and Sierra looked to where he was pointing, but she didn't see anyone at first. But then she looked again with care. She saw the person Earl was talking about. The person looked evil and twisted. They started running to them. Sierra told Paige to hand her gun to her. She cocked it and aimed it. She pulled the trigger and the person dropped to the ground. She didn't even bother to arrest the person. She climbed in the passenger seat and they left. They drove back to Scio. But first, they went to Caddis because they needed to go to Tractor Supply, and there wasn't one in Scio or Jewett. Cecil needed some nails for a project he was working on. He was building a little house for Sierra's pet fox. Cecil and Jim were working on it. After they got done at Tractor Supply, they headed back for the house. When they got back to the house, Cecil and Jim finished up the house for Foxy. As they were finishing, Sierra was watching them. Sierra was just making sure it was big enough for Foxy. Foxy is a big fox, so he needs a lot of room. They finished up in about 45 minutes. Later that night, they went to New Philadelphia to visit Steve's mother, Diana. They promised that they were going to come up to see her when they got time. Well, now it is the time they have. They're going to use it while they have it. When they got to Diana's house, they went driving around. They picked up Diana and drove around for a few hours. Sierra moved from the passenger seat to the back seat, sitting next to Brent. While they were just driving around acting like a bunch of fools, they kept seeing the same car behind them. The ones that were riding in the bed of the truck saw it best. They didn't mind it because they thought the other car just needed to come the same way as them. Not too unusual. The car pulled off the road into the liquor store. They kept driving. Soon they went back to Diana's house. They dropped her off and headed back to Sayo. And they rode off into the sunset and were never seen again. The end. So that is part 4 to the road trip. I hope y'all like it, and see you.